This week on r/TIFU.
I have crippling depression.
Stay till the end to find out what happens when. Today I fricked up by sending nudes to my employee group chat. Today I fricked up by agreeing to an open relationship.
Be gone!
Obviously a throwaway. To put things into perspective, I, M20, and my girlfriend, F21, had been dating together for 4 and a bit years. Typical high school sweethearts. We wanted to move away and start our own lives after college. We decided to spice things up a bit and open up our relationship a little. It was pretty much a joint decision, but looking back she was kind of insistent on the whole sex is fun idea. She is on a night out with some friends when she phones me and asks if the whole open relationship thing is still cool, explaining she's met a guy, M24, and asks for me to pay for a hotel, because she wasn't working at the time. I agreed. I tell her to go for it, and she does. She texts me to say she had a good night and that all was well. The week after, she mentions she's meeting up with this guy again. Wasn't expecting it, but I'm cool with it. Again, asks for me to pay for her hotel. A decision I would live to regret. She doesn't text me the entire night. Weird, but okay, maybe she's just having a good time. The next day I receive a load of messages about how she needs a break from everything right now. Meeting this guy has apparently opened her eyes. A little more conversation and we're over. She's completely cut me out of her life. I check her Snapchat story, and of course, she's with him. I've heard from her friends that they're dating now. Today I fricked up by giving my son permission to beat his bully's ass.
Be gone!
My son was born with a condition called pectus excavatum. In layman's terms, his chest is sunken in. His condition was so bad that he only had 2.5 inches between his sternum and his spine, and his heart and lungs were bruised because of it. In December, he had surgery to correct it, and they put 2 nickel bars in his chest to give it space and train his bones to grow correctly. About 3 weeks after his surgery, a kid punched him and dislodged the top bar, and he had to have another surgery to put the bar back in place. The kid has been through a lot. Well, the doctor cleared him for most activity last week, just no skateboarding or bike riding, but he could now lift his backpack and go hang out with friends and play pickup, non-contact sports. Unbeknownst to me, a kid in his class had been bullying him all semester, and, because my son was afraid of getting hit again, he just took it. Well, the evening he was cleared, he came to me and said, "Dad, I'm cleared now. A kid has been bullying me and hitting me for months. Can I kick his ass?" Well, my son isn't really a fighter. He's fought with his brothers, but never anyone else, and he's always gotten his ass kicked. So I just figured he was just talking. But this is the first I had heard about the bullying, and I was concerned. I could tell he was distressed about the situation, so I told him to knock the fricker out. He just nodded and went to his room. Now, his older brother is tough sob. He had a traumatic brain injury 2 years ago and he missed a year of school, so he's in the same grade and coincidentally takes the same class. I talked to him about it and told him to handle it, but don't get in trouble. He told me that the kid walks in every day and punches my son in the head. I asked him why he allowed it to happen, and he said he wanted his brother to get tough, and once he was tired of getting hit, he would do something about it. While I kinda agree with his thinking, I instructed him to handle it without getting in trouble. The next morning I took them both to school, then drove back home to get my younger daughter, who goes to a different school but starts later. On the way to take her to school, my wife calls me. "Have you taken XXXXX to school yet?" "Well, after you do, go pick up your son. He got in a fight." I just assumed it was my oldest son. Imagine my surprise when I walked into the school office to see my younger son with a grin from ear to ear. He was beaming. He pointed to another kid sitting in a chair holding an ice pack on his face. I warned him. I was so proud. He had walked into class, sat down, and the kid popped him in the head like always. My older son got up to intervene, and before he could, my son decked the kid with one punch. He said the kid was bawling on the floor and that it was the best day of his life. He got suspended for 3 days. Today I fricked up by performing the Major Tom technique, and now I think I'm going to be disowned.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
If you aren't familiar with the Major Tom, it's because it's a thing I, hopefully, came up with. It's a form of autoerotic asphyxiation by using gravity. Basically, you jack off normally, but before you nut, you squat down as low as you can to the ground and breathe short, shallow breaths while still whacking it. This part is called getting in the shuttle. As you nut, you jump up from that squatting position as fast as you possibly freaking can and hold your breath. This is considered takeoff. If performed correctly, you should become very lightheaded and experience pure bliss due to the orgasm from your cock rocket. This is called being in space due to the fact you feel like you're floating. This is a technique that should be performed only by professionals, in a controlled environment. I, however, am not a professional despite creating the technique. You see, by hyperventilating and jumping up, you are literally cutting your brain off from oxygen. No oxygen equals no consciousness. When I took off, I freaking jumped up at Mach 50 and must have ripped a freaking hole in the goddamn space-time continuum. Because the next thing I know I was laying on the ground with my dong out, covered in space juices from my trip around the sun. Before I could even pick myself up off the ground, my mum rushed into my room to see if I was okay. She heard my re-entry. This part is called disappointing your mother. You can just imagine the scene she walked into. She stared at me with a mix of disgust, anger, and again, disappointment. I stared back with what I thought was confidence, like I was Buzz Aldrin and just got back from the moon. But thinking back on it, it was probably embarrassment while I was desperately trying to put my spaceplane back in the hangar while getting on my feet as quickly as possible, and due to the fact she's never caught me before, at least not to my knowledge, she ended up closing the door and stomping her way back to the living room, presumably to watch more Judge Judy, and to take her mind off of what she just freaking witnessed, or consider disowning me. I cleaned myself up, taking off my spacesuit and putting civilian clothing on. Somehow none of the rocket fuel managed to get in the carpet, just my clothes, and I managed to not even injure myself in the crash. I'm currently writing this in my room right now, and I don't plan on leaving it anytime soon until I can think of what to say to her, if there is anything to say at all.
Do it!
Today I fricked up by sending nudes to my employee group chat.
Do it!
Well, I recently started a new job about 5-6 months ago, doing some tech work, trying not to be too specific. With it being said, I'm pretty young, 24, definitely the youngest that works there by far. I also mostly work with other men, 30-40. We have a group me for the store I work at, which includes the owner, the manager and 5-6 other employees. The previous night I had been feeling a little frisky and desired to take some pictures, videos for the guy that I was with at the time. No biggie, right? The next morning I had work, go in as normal, pretty busy day actually. Moon rolls around and I needed to post a picture to the group about an issue I was having with a computer I was working on. I typed what I needed to said, click the camera roll icon, and just as I clicked the picture, a customer came up and started asking me a question. I hit send without thinking and go on about my day. I should also probably say that by this time I was working alone and closing, so no one else was around. The customer who came in kept me pretty busy for 30-45 minutes. When they finally left, I went to check my phone and saw I had a bunch of missed calls from my boss. At first I thought he was just calling me about the question I had. While the phone was ringing, I went back to look at the group. To my horror, I clicked not just a picture from the night before, but the whole damn video. My heart dropped instantly when I realized what happened. My boss picked up the phone. He began questioning me about what my intentions were with the video and that he's never had anyone do such a disrespectful act in the company before. I tried to explain, but needless to say that was my last day working there. LOL. On the bright side, the co-worker I had a crush on finally got his attention. Person shrugging.
Are you mad, bro? Tell me what you're mad for.